So, talk about a backtrack. Forbes, a once reliable outlet, but over the past year or so, not so much. They reported back in like October that Superman lost money, and they shared in an article this formula they used to come to that conclusion, and it was wrong. The math was wrong, which resulted in this inaccurate assertion that the movie lost money at the box office. Now, I did a breakdown of the Superman box office and debunked the Forbes article, essentially. I did that a few weeks ago, as did many others. And it would appear now that Forbes is backtracking as well, albeit it's a different contributor this time. It's not from the guy that wrote the first article, but guys, what stinks about this? Like, and not stinks as in, oh, that's too bad. Stinks as in, like, you're not running your operation very well, Forbes. Is that original article and this new article, these aren't opinion pieces. This isn't two different contributors from Forbes having different opinions and writing articles about their opinion, which would be totally fine. These are pieces that are breaking down data. It's not just that, two Forbes contributors have a different opinion on whether or not Superman was a success. We're talking cold hard numbers. And the previous report was just factually false. And as far as I know, they have not printed a retraction. Instead, they've just allowed another article to go up that basically pretends that first article never happened. And now, and in that article, really, they even had the nerve to, well, I don't know if this guy that wrote this was having fun and taking shots at the other guy or what, but it is a Forbes article. And they had the nerve to call out other, like, quote, haters for their reports that Superman lost money. Motherfuckers, you, Forbes, are one of the main outlets that reported that Superman lost money and actually gave that false claim a sense of validity. And now the Snyder bros who hate everything James Gunn and DCU, these douchebags are running victory laps following your report because you gave this false sense of validity to their baseless claims that James Gunn and the DCU and his Superman are all somehow massive failures. And real quick, it's rich, isn't it, with the Snyder bros, that anytime a report from one of these big trades like Forbes comes out that these dorks don't like, they call it fake news and wrong. But when they put out a report that confirms their own, previously held bias, they say shit like, well, you can't doubt Forbes, it's Forbes. And now here Forbes is saying the opposite, and these guys are either silent or coping or whatever. So look, let's just read the report, all right? And then we'll move on to more fun topics, I promise. But I just had to give this a little bit of attention and take my own little victory lap because Forbes, who had said Superman failed, they're now calling it an even bigger financial success than I did in my breakdown of the box office. So let's read it together, and then I promise we'll move on. All right, starting the article now. There's a lot of mistaken analysis out there about Gunn, the DCU, and Superman. Some websites, mostly on low-quality fan sites that push rumors and clickbait, you mean you, they're trying to spin things as if Superman is some sort of box office failure and that audiences aren't interested. The film generated more than 100 million in profits, had great reviews and audience scores, and did big numbers in theaters and home entertainment. But you can safely ignore it. And anyone pushing those false narratives. What's actually happening is very simple. WBD is Warner Brothers Discovery. They're up for a buyout. And some fans want certain studios to buy it and fire Gunn to reinstall whatever personal preferences those fans have about DC movie. That's true. They think that if Netflix buys it or Skydance buys it, that they're going to bring back the Snyderverse. And also, I just want to say, to those saying that, oh, if the DCU was successful, they wouldn't be trying to sell Warner Brothers, and get rid of it all. No, the reason they're selling Warner Brothers, the reason DC is so successful right now, is Zaslav. Zaslav came in. They bought Warner Brothers from AT&T. Discovery did, for the sole purpose of creating Warner Brothers Discovery for making it a profitable company that could sell for a lot of money. They were doing a flip. That's the whole reason they bought it in the first place, was to sell it. That's why they did away with the DCU. That's why they brought in a talented guy like James Gunn to save the DCU and actually make it worth wanting and making the value of the company more so that they could then sell it. I'll continue with the article. The theory is that studios will see fans acting mad and hear fan blogs claiming Superman was a failure, and that somehow those studio executives will be generally ignorant enough of how movies and box office and profits work to fall for it. Hint, they aren't. Dude, you're being really cocky for a site. And I agree with everything you're saying, but for a site that just put out an article that said all this stuff that you're critiquing. Any changes a buyer wanted to implement would likely fall within a narrow range, but I think the primary DCU plans will remain as is. Gunn's Superman is the most popular superhero film of 2025. I said that. And it sounds like this guy might have watched my video, actually. And it reset the audience interest in DC with a box office result at least 40% or more higher than any other previous of the 9 DCU movies from the past 8 years. It beat all 3 Marvel Studios releases this year, including Marvel's summer tentpole Fantastic Four First Steps. Superman also earned universal critical acclaim and high audience scores, as well as strong streaming numbers and home entertainment sales and rentals. The film will have generated significantly more than $100 million in profits and approaching a $150 million globally when all is said and done. This year, it's not a failure. It didn't underperform. It was widely beloved and by mainstream audiences and most fans, and no amount of resentment or wishes or lies will change those facts. I agree. Sounds like you watched my video. But again, it's rich coming from Forbes. So, good on this writer, but still, fuck you, Forbes. I remember that you guys spoiled Infinity War for me years ago. Before the movie was publicly released, you're talking about how the snap happens. All right. Let's move on to our next question. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the Mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in at the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com, and hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show. And guys, I get a lot of questions sent to the Mailbag, and I wish I could answer every single one of them, but sometimes I just cannot get to them all. But if you are a channel member, that does guarantee that you get one of your questions answered right here on the show every show. So if you want to support the channel in that way, it is very much appreciated. And remember, the show is now on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the podcasting places. So please, if you've got a sec, give the show a download. It really helps us out a lot.